The night was unnaturally quiet. The battlefield stretched far into the horizon, littered with the broken remains of alien war machines and the twisted bodies of human and alien soldiers alike. Smoke curled lazily from the wreckage, the scent of burnt metal and flesh thick in the cold air. The dark sky above was punctuated only by the flicker of distant stars and the occasional flash of movement, the remnants of the orbital battle still raging far above Earth's atmosphere. Sergeant Kai lay flat on the rough concrete of a collapsed building, his breathing controlled and steady despite the chaos surrounding him. His sniper rifle was pressed firmly against his shoulder, the scope aligned perfectly with his right eye. His gloved finger rested lightly on the trigger, the rifle's internal systems humming softly as it adjusted for the wind and gravitational pull. Through the enhanced lens of his scope, he tracked a figure moving through the debris-strewn wasteland. An alien officer, tall and armored in dark metallic plating, its glowing blue eyes scanning the area with unnatural precision. "Sergeant Kai, report." The voice crackled in his earpiece. "Commander Jenna." Calm, collected, and precise, as always. "Target acquired," Kai whispered, adjusting his aim slightly. His cybernetic eye adjusted the scope's magnification automatically, giving him a clearer view of the alien's helmet. It was one of the elite. The black markings on the side of its armor confirmed it. A high-ranking officer. "Take the shot," Jenna ordered. Kai exhaled slowly and began to squeeze the trigger. Suddenly, the officer's head turned toward him. Kai's blood ran cold. That was impossible. He was cloaked, completely invisible to thermal and visual scanners. The alien couldn't possibly see him, and yet the glowing blue eyes of the officer were locked directly onto his position. The officer raised one of its long, armored arms. A flash of light erupted from the alien's gauntlet. Shit! An energy blast tore through the building beneath Kai, the impact sending him tumbling backward. He rolled over the edge of the building and crashed hard onto the rubble-strewn ground below. His sniper rifle was ripped from his hands, skidding across the cracked pavement. Alarms blared in his helmet as his HUD glitched and rebooted. Kai, do you copy?" Jenna's voice was sharp now, filled with tension. Kai groaned, pushing himself onto his knees. His shoulder was throbbing, and his vision blurred for a moment before the helmet's stabilizers kicked in. He looked up, and his blood froze. A massive figure stood on the rooftop above. A war mech, easily 3 meters tall, its dark armor humming with the faint glow of cloaking tech. Its plasma cannon pulsed as it locked onto him. Shit! Kai rolled to the side just as the mech fired. A bright blue plasma bolt scorched the ground where he had been a second earlier, sending up a cloud of dust and debris. Kai scrambled toward his rifle, but the mech's targeting systems were already locking onto him again. "Kai, status," Jenna barked through the comm. "Engaged," Kai shouted, his voice strained as he grabbed his rifle and rolled behind a chunk of concrete. "Kai, fall back," Jenna ordered. "Negative." Kai swung his rifle up, adjusting the settings for close-range fire. His suit's targeting system linked with the rifle, highlighting weak points in the mech's armor. He took a deep breath and fired. The bullet struck the mech's leg joint, sending a shower of sparks into the air. The mech stumbled, but its cannon remained locked on him. Another shot screamed toward him. Kai barely managed to dive out of the way before the blast vaporized the concrete barrier behind him. Dust and heat washed over him. "I need backup," Kai shouted. "Hold position. We're sending reinforcements." Jenna's voice was sharp now. "You need to stay alive, Sergeant." Kai's heart hammered against his ribs as he pulled himself up. He could hear the deep hum of the mech's servos as it adjusted its position. He was outmatched. His rifle was low on charge, and his armor was already showing critical damage warnings across his HUD. The ground trembled beneath him as the mech took a step closer. Its targeting lens glowed bright red. Kai steadied his breathing. If he was going down, he was going to take this thing with him. He slid another round into the rifle, adjusted the targeting settings manually, and rose to his knees. The mech's cannon whined as it powered up for a final shot. "Come on, you bastard," Kai whispered. The mech fired, just as Kai pulled the trigger. Both blasts met in the air between them. The plasma bolt exploded midair, sending a shockwave through the street. Kai's bullet tore through the weakened shield of the mech, striking the core beneath its chest plate. The mech staggered backward, its armor splitting as flames erupted from within. Its massive form toppled and crashed to the ground, sending up a cloud of dust and debris. Kai slumped back against the ruined concrete, breathing hard. His helmet was flashing damage warnings, and his rifle was completely out of charge. "Target down," Kai muttered, coughing. "We have movement on your position." Jenna's voice came through the comm again, calmer this time. Kai sat up, blinking dust from his eyes. His vision adjusted just in time to see shadows moving through the smoke. Not human shadows. Figures with glowing blue eyes and dark metallic armor emerged from the dust. Alien infantry. Elite soldiers. Their weapons were already raised. "Kai, get out of there." Jenna's voice was sharp with urgency. Kai's hand scrambled for his sidearm. He raised it as the first alien raised its plasma rifle. A burst of gunfire erupted from the side. The alien's head exploded in a burst of black ichor as a figure emerged from the smoke. Bonner, Kai's closest squad mate. "Stay down, Kai," Bonner shouted, laying down suppressing fire. Kai rolled to his feet and fired into the nearest alien, dropping it with a clean headshot. Bonner covered him, the two of them working in perfect sync as they cut down the advancing enemies. "We're clear," Bonner called out as the last alien hit the ground. "Appreciate the assist," Kai said, breathing hard. Bonner grinned beneath his helmet. "Couldn't let you have all the fun." Kai stood, shaking the dust from his armor. His rifle was out of charge, and his shoulder was throbbing painfully, but they had survived. For now. "Sergeant Kai," Jenna's voice returned, steady and cold. "Mission status." Kai glanced toward the wreckage of the mech. "Target destroyed. But they know we're here." A long pause. "Understood," Jenna said finally. "Return to base." Kai holstered his sidearm and exchanged a glance with Bonner. "This was just the beginning," Bonner said. Kai's jaw tightened. "Yeah. And next time, it won't be so easy to kill." The two soldiers disappeared into the smoke and shadows as distant explosions lit up the night sky. The war wasn't over, not even close. The night was colder than usual. Kai's breath fogged up the inside of his helmet as he crouched behind a crumbling wall, his rifle steady in his hands. The battlefield was quiet, too quiet. His HUD flickered with faint movement signals, but nothing concrete. His enhanced cybernetic eye scanned the dark ruins of the city ahead, the red targeting overlay highlighting heat signatures in the distance. He adjusted his grip on the rifle, his finger resting just above the trigger. "Sergeant Kai, do you have eyes on the target?" Jenna's voice filtered through his earpiece. "Negative. Area's too hot." Kai's voice was low, barely above a whisper. His suit's sound dampeners ensured that even his breathing wouldn't give away his position. "They're using some kind of jammer. I'm not getting a clean signal. Hold your position." Jenna's voice was calm, but Kai could hear the tension beneath it. "Intel says the target is in your sector. You're the closest asset we have." Kai adjusted his position, crawling forward through the broken rubble. His rifle was equipped with a stealth cloaking module, masking him from thermal and infrared detection. The suit's adaptive camouflage shifted to match the color of the debris, making him almost invisible against the ruined landscape. His heart hammered steadily in his chest, but his breathing remained calm. Years of training had taught him to suppress fear, or at least control it. A faint sound echoed through the darkness, the soft crunch of metal on stone. Kai's cybernetic eye flicked toward the source. Through the scope, he saw movement. Two alien soldiers, armored in dark plating with glowing blue visors, moved silently through the rubble. Their rifles were raised, scanning the area with cold precision. Kai remained still, his finger tightening slightly on the trigger. "They're searching for me," Kai whispered. "Stay low. Wait for the shot," Jenna instructed. Kai's eye tracked the aliens as they approached. The lead soldier was larger than the other, with heavier armor and a jagged insignia on its shoulder plate. A squad commander. Taking it down would disrupt their chain of command. His targeting overlay flashed red as the system analyzed the weak points in the armor. Neck joint, chest core, and knee servos. All exposed if he could get a clean shot. Kai steadied his breath. The squad commander's helmet suddenly turned toward him. Its visor pulsed blue as if it had sensed something. Kai fired. The bullet screamed through the air, cutting through the darkness with deadly precision. It struck the commander's helmet at the perfect angle, piercing the weak point at the base of the neck. The alien's head snapped back, and it crumpled to the ground in a heap. The second alien reacted instantly, spinning toward Kai's position and raising its rifle. Kai fired again. The bullet struck the alien's shoulder, sending it staggering backward. It roared, a low, guttural sound, and fired blindly toward Kai's position. Kai rolled out of the way as a plasma bolt tore through the rubble behind him, showering him with chunks of stone and dust. He adjusted his rifle, lined up the shot, and fired. The bullet punched through the alien's visor, shattering the glass and spraying black ichor into the night. The alien dropped to the ground, twitching violently before going still. "Target's down," Kai reported, breathing hard. "Confirmed." Jenna's voice came through. "Nice shooting." Kai pulled himself to his feet, his rifle still raised. His visor adjusted to the low light as his targeting system scanned the area for any additional threats. "Kai." Jenna's voice sounded different now. "You're not done yet." A shadow passed overhead. Kai's head snapped upward. His HUD flared with new targeting data, multiple heat signatures approaching fast. He barely had time to react before the first energy blast slammed into the ground beside him, sending him flying backward into a pile of rubble. His suit's internal systems flashed damage reports as he forced himself upright. His targeting system flickered, trying to recalibrate. Kai pulled himself to his knees, his hands tightening around his rifle. Through the dust and smoke, he saw them. 5 figures, moving in perfect sync. Tall, armored, and fast. Elite hunters. "Kai, you've got incoming," Jenna shouted. "I see them." Kai snapped. The lead alien raised a massive pulse rifle and fired. Kai rolled to the side as the plasma bolt tore through the debris behind him. He swung his rifle up and fired. The bullet struck the lead alien in the shoulder, but it barely flinched. "They're shielded," Kai shouted. "Fall back." Jenna's voice was sharp now. "You can't take them alone." Kai's jaw tightened. "Like hell I can't." He adjusted his rifle's settings, switching to armor-piercing rounds. His targeting system identified the weak points, shield nodes at the base of the spine. Difficult shots, but not impossible. Kai steadied his breath and fired. The bullet struck the lead alien's spine, piercing the shield generator. Sparks erupted from the armor, and the shield flickered before failing. Kai fired again. The bullet punched through the alien's chest plate. The alien stumbled, black ichor leaking from the wound, then collapsed to the ground. The others charged. Kai fired rapidly, taking down the nearest one with a clean shot through the visor. Another alien lunged toward him. Kai sidestepped, drew his sidearm, and fired point-blank into the alien's face. The alien's head snapped back, and it fell. The last 2 aliens fired in unison. Kai ducked behind a concrete slab as the plasma bolts exploded around him. His rifle was low on charge. His sidearm was almost out of ammo. His breathing was heavy, and his suit's integrity was down to 30%. "Kai." Jenna's voice was sharp. "I'm fine," Kai muttered. He adjusted the last round into his rifle and took a deep breath. He rolled out from behind the cover and fired. The bullet struck the first alien in the chest, dropping it instantly. The last alien rushed him, plasma cannon charging. Kai lunged forward, driving the butt of his rifle into the alien's chest. The alien stumbled, and Kai pressed the barrel of his sidearm against its head and fired. The alien's helmet cracked open, and it fell limp to the ground. Kai staggered back, breathing hard. His rifle's charge indicator blinked red. His suit's systems were failing. His hands were shaking. "Clear," Kai said. His voice was calm, but his heart was still racing. "Confirmed," Jenna replied. "Extraction team is inbound. Hold your position." Kai slumped against the ruined concrete, his rifle resting across his lap. His breathing slowed. His eyes adjusted to the darkness as the smoke settled. He could hear the distant hum of the dropship approaching. The battle was over. For now. "Kai." Jenna's voice softened. "Good work." Kai closed his eyes for a moment. The cold night air pressed against his battered armor. He had survived, but he knew this was just the beginning, because the enemy would return. Stronger, smarter, and next time, they wouldn't underestimate him. The extraction team arrived just as Kai was reloading his rifle. The dropship hovered above the ruined city, its searchlights cutting through the smoke and dust. The side doors slid open, and two figures in dark armor rappelled down, their rifles scanning the area. Kai recognized them instantly. Bravo Team's extraction squad. They moved with cold efficiency, securing the perimeter before one of them approached him. "Sergeant Kai." The soldier's voice filtered through the helmet speaker. "Yeah," Kai said, standing slowly. His legs felt heavy, and his suit's power reserves were running low. He forced himself upright. "Target down. Confirm kill with command." "Confirmed," the soldier replied. He tapped his wrist-mounted communicator. "Command, we have the asset. Preparing for extraction." Kai was pulled into the dropship. The interior was cold, lined with dark metal, and illuminated by faint red lights. Kai sat against the wall, unfastening his rifle from his back and setting it across his knees. His hands were still shaking. His suit's internal systems were running emergency diagnostics, but the damage was bad. He could feel the strain in his muscles beneath the synthetic weave of the undersuit. Jenna's voice crackled over the comms. "Nice work, Kai. We're getting some interesting chatter from the enemy network. You might have just pissed off someone high up." "Good," Kai muttered. The dropship banked hard to the left, the engines humming beneath the deck. Through the side window, Kai could see the dark expanse of the ruined city below. Fires still burned in the distance, casting an eerie glow across the twisted skyline. The city had been a human colony once, before the aliens came. Now it was nothing more than a battlefield. ETA 5 minutes. The pilot's voice filtered through the cabin. "Hold tight." Kai leaned his head back against the cold metal wall and closed his eyes. He could still feel the adrenaline pumping through his veins. The memory of the kill was fresh. The clean shot, the moment of impact, the sound of the alien's body hitting the ground. He had done his job. He always did his job. But then the dropship shuddered violently. The red lights flickered, and the engine screamed. "Incoming fire," the pilot shouted. Kay's eyes snapped open. He was already moving as the ship tilted hard to the right. Plasma bolts hammered against the hull, sending sparks cascading across the cabin. Kai grabbed his rifle and steadied himself as the ship dropped rapidly. "We're hit," the pilot yelled. "Losing altitude." "Where's it coming from?" Kai shouted. "Multiple contacts. 6. No, 7. Hostiles on approach." Kai moved toward the side door and hit the release switch. The metal panel slid open with a hiss, and the night air rushed in. He saw them immediately, sleek black alien ships cutting through the sky like shadows, their cannons glowing with blue energy. One of them fired. The plasma bolt screamed toward the dropship. "Brace." The bolt struck the side of the ship, and the entire craft spun violently. Kai was thrown against the doorframe. His hands grabbed the edge just as the ship banked hard. His legs dangled in the open air. Below him, the city's dark ruins raced past. His grip slipped. Kai. Jenna's voice was sharp in his ear. Kay's hand caught the edge of the door. His rifle dangled from the strap around his shoulder. His suit's damage alerts were flashing red. His arms burned with the strain of holding on. The wind roared around him as the ship dipped lower. He pulled himself up just as another bolt struck the dropship. The hull exploded in a shower of sparks. Kai threw himself back into the cabin as the ship spun out of control. "Emergency landing," the pilot yelled. "Brace for impact." The ship slammed into the ground. Metal screamed as it skidded across the ruined street, sending debris flying in every direction. Kai's head slammed against the bulkhead. His vision blurred. His suit's damage reports flashed critical. The world spun and then went dark. Kai woke to the sound of gunfire. His eyes opened slowly. His head throbbed. Smoke filled the air. His HUD flickered and recalibrated. He forced himself to his knees, grabbing his rifle. The extraction team was down. 2 soldiers lay motionless beside the wreckage. Their armor was scorched from plasma burns. Footsteps echoed through the smoke. Kai's targeting system flashed red. Enemies. Kai pushed himself up and steadied his rifle. Through the haze, he saw them. Alien soldiers in dark armor, moving in coordinated patterns. Their weapons pulsed with blue light as they advanced on the crash site. Kai's hand steadied. He took aim and fired. The bullet struck the lead alien's helmet, dropping it instantly. He fired again. Another clean shot to the chest. But they kept coming. Kai ducked behind the wreckage as a plasma bolt screamed past his head. His suit's power reserves were almost gone. His ammunition was low. He fired another shot, hitting one of the aliens in the knee. The alien fell, snarling, before Kai finished it with a headshot. "Kai." Jenna's voice was sharp. "Get out of there." "I'm working on it," Kai growled. A shadow moved through the smoke. Kai swung his rifle around and froze. It was human armor. But the markings were wrong. The armor was darker, the edges sharper. The figure's helmet gleamed under the firelight as it stepped toward him. Kai's targeting system didn't identify it as friendly. "Stand down," the figure said, its voice cold. "Male. Human. Identify yourself," Kai shouted. The figure raised a sleek black rifle and aimed it at Kai's chest. "Stand down, Sergeant." Kai's hand tightened on the trigger. "You're not part of Bravo Team." "No," the figure said, "but I've been ordered to clean up this mess." The figure fired. Kai rolled to the side as the shot hit the wreckage behind him. He came up firing. The bullet struck the figure's shoulder, but the armor absorbed it. The figure's helmet tilted slightly. "Don't make this difficult, Kai." Kai's eyes narrowed. "Who are you?" The figure didn't answer. Another shot ripped toward Kai, narrowly missing his head. He ducked and returned fire, but the figure was already moving. Fast, too fast for human reflexes. Augmented. Kai's jaw tightened. He fired again, aiming low. The bullet struck the figure's knee joint. Sparks flew. The figure stumbled, and Kai lunged forward, slamming the butt of his rifle into the figure's head. The helmet cracked. The figure fell to one knee. Kai pressed his rifle barrel to the figure's head. "Last chance," Kai said coldly. "Who sent you?" The figure's helmet visor flickered, and then went dark. "You already know the answer," the figure said. Kai's finger tightened on the trigger. A sudden explosion tore through the air. The ground shook. Kai was thrown backward as debris rained down around him. His visor flickered, and his HUD scrambled. When his vision cleared, the figure was gone. "Kai." Jenna's voice broke through the static. "I'm here," Kai muttered. He pulled himself to his feet, his rifle heavy in his hands. His head was pounding. "What the hell just happened?" Jenna's voice was sharp. Kay's eyes narrowed toward the smoke-filled darkness where the figure had vanished. I think we have a problem. Kay's breath fogged up the inside of his helmet as he crouched behind a pile of broken concrete. His hands were steady, but his heart hammered painfully against his chest. The cold metal of the sniper rifle pressed against his shoulder as he peered down the scope. Through the haze of smoke and flickering streetlights, he could see the alien convoy moving through the ruined city. The shimmering energy shields surrounding the enemy vehicles distorted the air around them like a heat mirage. Jenna's voice filtered through his helmet. "Kai, are you seeing this?" "Yeah," Kai whispered. His finger rested lightly on the trigger. The convoy was heavily guarded. At least 24 elite alien soldiers in sleek black armor moved alongside the hovercrafts. Their rifles were primed, their movements coordinated. In the center of the formation, encased in a transparent energy shell, was the target, an alien general. The creature's skin glowed faintly under the shield, its elongated head marked with golden insignia. "This is insane," Jenna said. "No way you're getting through that shield." Kay's jaw tightened. "Watch me." He adjusted his scope, the targeting reticle locking onto the general's head. His suit's AI calculated the distance and the shield's frequency. The numbers didn't make sense. The shield was layered, oscillating at different wavelengths. It would deflect any standard shot. "Switching to piercing round," Kai muttered. He tapped the sight of his rifle, and the ammunition type switched with a soft mechanical click. A small indicator lit up on his HUD. "Kai." Jenna's voice sharpened. "That shot is impossible. Even if you pierce the shield, the distortion will." "Noted." Kai cut her off. He steadied his breathing. His finger tensed on the trigger. The scope adjusted, showing real-time data. Wind speed, trajectory, shield oscillation rate. It was impossible. Even with his training, the odds were astronomical. The alien general moved beneath the shield, surrounded by guards. The entire convoy was advancing toward the human outpost. If they made it, the defensive line would fall. Thousands of lives depended on this shot. Kai exhaled slowly. His mind cleared. His breathing steadied. The moment slowed. His world narrowed to the space between his eye and the target. He could see the tiny flicker of distortion in the shield as it adjusted to the environment. A weakness, barely a millisecond long. Jenna's voice was tense. "Kai, you don't have a shot." Kay's eyes narrowed. "I always have a shot." He pulled the trigger. The rifle's sound suppressor absorbed the gunfire, turning it into a soft thump. The round cut through the air, its trajectory precise. Time seemed to slow as it streaked toward the shield. It struck the oscillating barrier, and for an instant, the shield flashed and flickered. The bullet passed through. The alien general's head snapped back as the round pierced its skull. Its body collapsed, twitching violently before it stilled. Chaos erupted. The guards immediately scattered, searching for the source of the shot. Plasma bolts rained down toward Kay's position. He ducked behind the concrete as the wall exploded into shards of metal and stone. "Shot confirmed." Jenna's voice was breathless. "Kai, that was." "Not over yet," Kai growled. He reloaded, the empty shell casing hitting the ground with a metallic ring. The alien guards were closing in. His targeting system flashed red. 5 contacts. Fast. Kai rolled to the side as a plasma bolt struck the ground where he had been crouching. He came up firing. 2 quick shots. The first struck an alien in the neck, dropping it instantly. The second hit another in the chest, sending it crashing to the ground. "Kai, they're flanking you," Jenna shouted. Kai spun, his rifle already up. A plasma bolt screamed toward him. He barely managed to dodge it, but the heat of the blast scorched his shoulder armor. He fired mid-spin, and the bullet tore through another alien's skull. 2 left. Kai ducked behind a broken pillar, his rifle barrel pressed against the stone. His HUD recalibrated, showing the approaching enemy's heat signatures. They moved fast, too fast. He could hear the mechanical sound of their powered armor as they closed in. Kai pulled a smoke grenade from his belt and tossed it into the street. The canister hissed, releasing a thick cloud of dark smoke. His visor adjusted instantly, switching to thermal view. Through the haze, he saw one of the aliens moving toward him. He aimed and fired. The round punched through the smoke and hit the target's head. The alien collapsed. The last one emerged from the smoke, raising a plasma rifle. Kai didn't have time to aim. He lunged forward, swinging the butt of his rifle into the alien's face. The creature staggered, and Kai flipped his rifle around, jamming the barrel under its chin. "Good night," Kai growled. He pulled the trigger. The alien's head exploded in a shower of dark ichor. "Kai," Jenna's voice was sharp. "You've got incoming." From above, Kai's head snapped up. A sleek alien dropship hovered above the street, its side panels sliding open. Soldiers rappelled down on thin energy lines, their weapons already primed. "Jenna, where's my exit?" "We're routing an extraction ship, 2 minutes out." Kai cursed. 2 minutes was too long. He slid behind cover as plasma bolts hammered down around him. He was out of smoke grenades, and his suit's power levels were draining fast. "Jenna." Kai's voice was cold. "Tell the pilot to hurry." "Kai, what are you planning?" "Improvising." Kai activated his rifle's overdrive mode. His targeting system switched to rapid fire. He stood and opened fire, his rifle spitting out rounds at high velocity. 3 aliens dropped immediately, their armor shredded. The remaining soldiers fired back. Plasma bolts struck the ground around Kai, but he was already moving, weaving through the wreckage. The dropship's cannons charged, glowing with blue light. Kai sprinted toward the nearest building and fired his grappling line. The line shot upward and latched onto the crumbling ledge. Kai activated his suit's boosters and shot into the air as the dropship's cannons fired. The street below erupted in fire and debris. Kai landed hard on the building's roof, rolling to his feet. The dropship turned toward him, its cannons charging again. Kai took a breath. He adjusted his rifle's scope, aiming for the exposed vent beneath the ship's cannon. His targeting system calculated the shot. 800 meters, slight crosswind. He fired. The round struck the vent. The dropship shuddered, and then exploded. The blast wave knocked Kai off his feet. He hit the rooftop hard, his suit's impact dampeners barely softening the blow. "Kai," Jenna's voice screamed through the comms. "I'm fine." Kai grunted. He pushed himself up as the wreckage of the dropship crashed into the street below, flames rising from the shattered hull. The extraction ship roared into view. Its side doors slid open as it hovered above the rooftop. Kai's grappling line shot out, latching onto the edge. Kai pulled himself into the ship, collapsing against the cold metal floor. His chest heaved. His suit's HUD flashed critical alerts, but he ignored them. Jenna's face appeared on the holographic display. "That shot. Impossible," Kai said, smiling faintly. "I know. You're insane." "Yeah," Kai breathed. "But I get the job done." Kai's hands were trembling as he sat against the cold metal wall of the extraction ship. His helmet was off, revealing sweat-matted hair and blood running down the side of his face. His chest heaved as the ship rattled from the turbulence of the atmosphere. Jenna's face appeared on the display above him, concern written all over her features. "You need medical attention." Jenna's voice was sharp. "You're losing blood." Kai wiped his face with the back of his glove. "I'll live." The extraction ship's engines roared as it banked hard to the left. Kai grabbed the overhead rail to steady himself. Through the side viewport, he could see the city below, burning. Fires spread across the streets, and alien patrols were moving through the wreckage. Explosions flickered in the distance as human forces fought to hold the line. "They're not stopping," Jenna said quietly. The general's death didn't slow them down. Kai's jaw tightened. "Then we keep hitting them until they do." The ship suddenly jolted as a plasma bolt struck the hull. Warning lights flickered red across the cabin. Shields are down. The pilot yelled over the comm. We've got incoming. Kai pushed himself to his feet, his rifle already in his hands. He glanced at the display. 4 alien dropships in pursuit. Their cannons were charging. Jenna, Kai said, reroute us toward the mountain pass. What? That's a dead zone. No cover, no backup. I know. Kay, do it. The ship banked sharply as the pilot redirected toward the jagged cliffs ahead. The dropships followed, plasma fire streaking through the sky. The extraction ship's hull groaned under the strain. We're not going to make it, the pilot shouted. Kay's mind was already calculating. The dropships were closing fast, and the extraction ship wouldn't survive another direct hit. His targeting system highlighted the closest dropship. The energy signature of its core glowed faintly beneath the hull. Kai. Jenna's voice was low. What are you thinking? Buying us some time. Kai activated his suit's magnetic lock and stepped toward the side door. He hit the emergency release. The door hissed and slid open, revealing the roaring wind and the jagged mountains below. Kai, don't. Kai raised his rifle, locking onto the lead dropship. He steadied his breath, his finger hovering over the trigger. His HUD calculated the trajectory. Moving target, 500 meters, crosswind. He fired. The round punched through the dropship's hull. Sparks and fire erupted from the engine. The ship banked hard, spinning out of control before slamming into the mountainside. 3 left. The remaining dropships opened fire. Plasma bolts tore through the sky, and one struck the extraction ship's wing. The ship tilted violently to the side. Kai nearly lost his balance. He steadied himself and raised his rifle again. Kai. Jenna's voice was frantic. They're going to tear you apart. Kai didn't respond. He fired again. 2 quick shots. One round struck the lead dropship's wing, sending it into a tailspin. It crashed into the mountainside, disappearing in a ball of fire. 2 left. The remaining dropships adjusted, changing formation. Their cannons began charging. Kai's suit's targeting system flashed red. Critical battery levels. His rifle's ammo count showed 2 rounds left. Kai. Jenna's voice was trembling. You're not going to survive this. Kai's hands tightened around the rifle. I know. He took a step toward the edge of the extraction ship's door. Wind roared past him, pulling at his suit. His HUD displayed a countdown. 10 seconds until the dropship's cannons fired. Kai's breath steadied. His mind cleared. You're not doing this. Jenna's voice was sharp. Kai. Tell them. Kai's voice was calm. Tell them it wasn't luck. Kai. He stepped off the edge. Free fall. Wind screamed past his ears as he dropped toward the closest dropship. His targeting system locked onto the ship's cannon. His finger tightened on the trigger. He fired. The bullet punched through the cannon's casing. The weapon overloaded, and the ship erupted into flames. Shrapnel and fire exploded outward. Kai twisted in midair, his suit's boosters firing at full power. His trajectory shifted toward the last dropship. He had 1 round left. The last dropship's cannons charge, blue light glowing beneath the hull. Kai's mind calculated. 200 meters, slight crosswind. He took aim. Kai. Jenna's voice screamed. He fired. The bullet struck the ship's core. The explosion ripped through the hull, and the ship spiraled out of control, crashing into the mountainside. Kai's booster sputtered, failing him under the heat and pressure. His suit's power levels flashed critical. His altitude dropped fast. He was falling. His body twisted as the ground rushed toward him. His suit's impact dampeners activated, but they were failing. His HUD flickered, systems crashing one by one. He hit hard. Pain exploded through his body as he rolled down the jagged mountainside. His suit absorbed most of the impact, but he felt the bones in his arm snap. He slid to a stop at the base of the cliff, lying motionless on the rocky ground. His visor was cracked. His rifle was gone. Blood trickled down his face. Kai. Jenna's voice was broken. Kai, do you hear me? Kay's eyes fluttered open. Through the haze, he saw the burning wreckage of the dropships above him. His breath shuddered. Jenna. His voice was weak. Hold on. Jenna's voice was desperate. We're sending a team. Just hold on. Kay's eyes drifted toward the sky. Smoke and fire filled the air. But beyond that, he could see the stars. Not bad, he whispered, for an impossible shot. His eyes closed. Darkness crept in. Kai. Kai. Jenna's voice faded. Then, silence. Kai's breath came in shallow gasps as he lay on the cold ground. His vision was blurry, and his helmet's HUD was flickering in and out. His body screamed with pain, broken ribs, a fractured arm, and internal bleeding. The sharp taste of blood filled his mouth. He could hear Jenna's voice distantly through the damaged comms. Kai, stay awake. Stay with me. Kai's eyes fluttered open. His vision was hazy, but he could make out the dark sky above, the stars barely visible through the smoke and ash in the air. He could smell burning metal and scorched earth. The wreckage of the last dropship was still smoldering nearby. Flames crackled in the distance, lighting up the jagged cliffs. Jenna. Kai's voice was barely above a whisper. His throat was raw. Hold on. I've got a team coming. Jenna's voice was frantic. Just keep talking to me. Kai's eyelids grew heavier. His body felt cold despite the burning wreckage around him. He could feel himself slipping. His hand weakly reached toward his chest, but his arm wouldn't respond. His vision darkened. Then he heard them, heavy footsteps crunching over the gravel. Kai's instincts kicked in, and his hand shot toward his sidearm. His fingers brushed the grip, but his strength failed. The footsteps stopped beside him. He forced his eyes open and saw a pair of armored boots standing over him. A shadow loomed above him. Well, Dan. The voice was rough and familiar. Kai's gaze focused, and he saw Corporal Dax standing over him, his helmet tucked under one arm. His face was streaked with blood and dirt, but the cocky grin was unmistakable. You look like hell, Dax said. Kai coughed weakly, blood running from the corner of his mouth. Takes one to know one. Dax knelt down, sliding an injector into Kai's neck. A cold rush spread through Kai's veins as the pain dampened slightly. We thought you were dead, Dax said. Still working on it, Kai muttered. Two medics rushed forward, dropping beside Kai. They began scanning him, cutting away parts of his armor. One of them pressed a sealant patch over his side, where blood was pooling beneath the cracked plates. Kai's head tilted toward the sky. The fires were still burning. The battle was over. The alien dropships were nothing but smoking wreckage. He had done it. They had won. Jenna's voice came over the comms. Kai. I'm here, Kai whispered. You idiot. Her voice was breaking. You weren't supposed to die. Didn't. Dax laughed. Barely. Kai's eyelids were heavy. His strength was draining. His body relaxed as the medics continued their work. His mind drifted. The memory of the battlefield lingered in his mind. The impossible shot. The sound of the dropships crashing into the mountainside. The desperate fear as he fell through the cold night air. It felt like a dream. You really did it, Dax said. Took down the whole damned elite squad. Yeah, Kai murmured. And lived. Working on that part. The extraction ship hovered above them, its engines roaring as it descended. The rear doors opened, and the medics lifted Kai onto a stretcher. Dax followed close behind, his rifle still in his hands. They carried Kai up the ramp. The ship's interior was dimly lit. The floor vibrated beneath him as the engines increased power. Status. Jenna's voice came over the comms. Extraction complete, Dax said. Snipers still breathing. Barely. Kai's head rolled toward the side. Through the viewport, he could see the planet's surface shrinking as the ship climbed higher. The fires of battle were disappearing beneath a layer of dark clouds. Jenna's face appeared on the overhead display. Her eyes were red. "Don't ever do that again. Next time." Kai's voice was weak. "You make the shot." Jenna smiled faintly. "You're impossible." Kai's breathing slowed as the painkillers kicked in. His mind drifted back to the beginning. The mission briefing. The tension in the air before the first shot. The moment when he pulled the trigger and the war shifted. The human forces had won a decisive victory. The alien generals' elite forces were decimated. The planet was no longer under enemy control. The aliens had underestimated humanity and paid the price. "You changed everything," Jenna said quietly. "Just doing my job." "No," Jenna said. "You did more than that." Kai's eyes closed. His body relaxed against the stretcher. A soft chime echoed through the cabin. "Entering orbital range," the pilot announced. Dax leaned back against the wall, his rifle resting on his knee. "They're gonna write stories about this, you know. About the sniper who took down the general's elite." Kai's eyes opened slightly. "Let them." Jenna's face remained on the screen. "You earned some rest." Kai smiled faintly. "I'll sleep when the war's over." The ship tilted slightly as it adjusted course toward the fleet. The stars outside the viewport glimmered against the darkness of space. Jenna's face softened. "We're alive because of you." Kai's gaze drifted toward the stars. His body ached, but a quiet satisfaction settled in his chest. He had done what no one thought was possible. "You know," Kai's voice was soft, "snipers don't fight for glory." "Then why?" Kai's eyes closed. "Because someone has to pull the trigger." Jenna's voice was quiet. "And you did." The ship's engines hummed as it broke through the atmosphere. The stars outside burned bright. Kai drifted into sleep, the hum of the ship's systems fading into the background. The silent hunters had left their mark. The galaxy would remember their name.